Yes, we have another compact crossover in the segment. I know, you're all probably nauseated with the number of different choices that you have in this segment. But before you change to another video of twerking cats, wait until you see everything this 2022 Mitsubishi Outlander SEL Touring trim has to offer. I think you're going to be impressed. Okay, now the vehicle standing behind me is the all-new redesigned 2022 Mitsubishi Outlander. More specifically, it's the SEL Touring trim, which is the top-of-the-line trim level for this vehicle, and it really does come with some amazing features for this price point. Now, before we get started, let's talk about Mitsubishi as a brand. The company built its name on the likes of the 3000 GT, the Eclipse, the Evo, but here we are in 2022 and they don't sell any of those vehicles anymore. And the reason is because tastes changed. People preferred versatility and crossovers, and so Mitsubishi really had to double down on those segments. Now, believe it or not, this vehicle actually shares a lot of components with the Nissan Rogue. Why, you may ask? Well, that's because Nissan actually owns about 1/3 of Mitsubishi, so it only made sense to share some of the costs in creating one of the hottest vehicles in the segment. Now, don't get this thing mixed up with a Nissan Rogue, because there are several differences with this vehicle versus the Rogue, which we'll talk about in today's video. But before we get started, I do want to give a huge shout out and thank you to Mitsubishi for giving me the opportunity to review this vehicle for you all today. If you guys are in the market for an Outlander, especially after watching all of the cool features in today's video, make sure you check out their inventory and their website. I'm going to put a link down in the description below. Okay, let's kick things off with the exterior and interior features and quality, and let's start off with the exterior. Now, starting with the color choices, in case you're wondering, this is called the Alloy Silver Metallic, and it looks pretty good on this vehicle, although Mitsubishi has quite a few different cool color options that you can check out on their website. Starting off with the front end, let's talk about styling, because it's a somewhat controversial design that some people may like, some people might hate. Personally, I think it looks pretty good. Now, starting with the top, this is actually your daytime running light, which is starting to become a little bit more common in the auto industry, where you have the running light up at the top and the headlight housing actually down below. Now, let me show you what it looks like with the daytime running lights, because they look really nice, especially if you're seeing this vehicle at night. And one other really nice touch that Mitsubishi added is this is actually an LED light strip that goes all the way around the grille insert, and it looks really good. I'm going to try to throw up some footage of this vehicle at night because it's hard to tell under the sunlight, but it really adds a nice touch to the vehicle, giving it kind of a more premium, luxurious look with the outline of the grille being lit up at night. Now, let's move on to the side, because this is where it gets a little bit more subtle, a little bit more maybe normal or non-controversial. You do have a really nice body line that goes all the way across the side of the vehicle, from essentially the front fender to the rear taillight. And I do have to mention, this SEL Touring trim does come with a silver roof rail as well, which looks really nice. And as you can see, you do kind of have a two-tone exterior, where you have what it looks like the windshield that wraps around the front passenger and driver window, giving it kind of a sleeker, sportier appearance to the profile of the vehicle. And coming to the back, this is where it gets a little bit more interesting, because you have this chrome piece that actually jets up into another piece of black plastic trim that goes all the way to the back. It kind of connects the rear windshield to the front windshield with one line that goes all the way across it. Again, just adds to the sleeker, sportier appearance, and personally, I really like what they did here. Now, while we're here, let's talk about wheels and tires. You actually have 255, 45, 20-inch wheels on this SEL Touring. Yes, a compact crossover with 20-inch wheels, and personally, I really like the design of this wheel. Coming to the back is where it gives off a little bit more of a German-like look to it, with the body line that kind of curves back around, and then you have another body line that kind of outlines the center of the rear tailgate, and it looks really nice. I think the LED tail lights look good. Overall, a really nice look to the rear, and definitely an upgrade from the previous generation, especially with the LED tail lights, and you do have a spoiler over here as well. But overall, I would argue this is a really good looking compact crossover. It almost looks like it punches above its weight, almost in the luxury segment rather than just the traditional entry-level compact crossover. Now, overall, I would rate the exterior a 7 out of 10. Even though looks are subjective, I think it's a pretty good looking crossover. Aside from the somewhat controversial front end, which you may love or hate, I think it's a handsome looking vehicle with the right proportions and angles. Okay, now for the part I'm excited about is climbing inside. Now, this vehicle does come with the smart key access, so all you do is you hold the door handle and push this button to lock and unlock, and then you can step inside of what I believe to be this Mitsubishi Outlander's competitive advantage. This is where it flexes its muscles over all other compact crossovers on the market, but we'll get to that in just a second. Let's start with the door panel, where you can immediately see the advantages of this vehicle over some of the competition. Starting off, you do have really nice leather soft touch surfaces all the way from the top down to this armrest. This is a hard touch plastic, but that's common amongst a lot of compact crossovers. But I do want to point out, look at this quilted stitched leather over here on the door panel. That's something you don't even get on luxury vehicles, let alone a compact crossover at this price point, which we'll talk about in just a minute. And I do want to point out, this isn't like an injection molded plastic that's just kind of rubbery. This is a very, very squishy, soft touch leather. You could easily rest your elbow here on long road trips and not feel sore. Coming back to the door panel, I really do like this brown color. The contrast is really nice. Really nice window switches here as well, and they do have automatic up and down, which is not something you always find. This is kind of a textured plastic material, which also doesn't look too bad. The only thing I will complain about here is this is a hard touch plastic, but again, this is a compact crossover, and this is not anything you're ever going to touch because you're going to rest your elbow over here, so you're really not going to feel it. You do have a little bit of ambient lighting over here. There's very limited interior ambient lighting, but it is surrounding this little door handle. You do have memory seats and a nice aluminum door handle. Now, coming over here to the bottom, you do have a cup holder and a little storage compartment where you can place some items, but nothing major, but at least you do have an extra cup holder. And this particular vehicle has the 10-speaker Bose audio system, and it sounds really nice. It's even in the A-pillar over there. A really nice upgraded audio system, and I like that they've partnered with Bose for this vehicle. Now, before we jump to the seats, I do want to talk about one last item on the door. At night, it will actually illuminate or project the Mitsubishi logo on the ground. Looks really nice, just those nice little touches that differentiate this vehicle from some of the competition. Now, let's come back and talk about these seats, because as you can see, that quilting and stitching carries over onto the driver and passenger seat, and in fact, the rear seats as well, which we'll show off in just a minute. Now, this does look really nice. It's a really nice leather material to it. You got some orange piping as well across the seat, and these are perforated seats. But keep in mind, even though these seats are heated for the front driver and passenger, they do not have ventilated seats as an option. These are 8-way adjustable power seats with lumbar support. But let's jump inside and talk about all of the cool features on the interior, and boy, are there a lot to talk about. Now, I don't even know where to start, but I guess I will start with this 12.3-inch all-digital instrument cluster display, which is truly amazing. I don't know of very many other competitors in this market that offer an all-digital display, so that's really impressive for a vehicle at this price point. Now, you can ignore the warning message. That just has to do with the tire pressure. It was a slightly cooler morning today, and so for that reason, I do need to inflate the front driver tire, but that is an issue for a different video. Now, since this vehicle does share a lot of components with the Nissan Rogue, I am sure you you may be familiar with this center display. This is something that you would find on the Infiniti products that I've reviewed in the past and some other Nissan products as well. And overall, it's actually a really good system. You've got a very, very crisp display with really nice graphics, and then you can even change the display if you choose to. So you could do change meter view, and it gives you kind of a cool graphic into a more modern appearance. Really nice instrument cluster. This is probably one of my favorite features on this vehicle because, again, it's not very common to find on a compact crossover. You know what else isn't very common is a 10.8-inch head-up display. So if my camera can focus, you can see this vehicle does come with a head-up display, and you can shut it off. I don't really know why you would, because it's a really nice feature to have. And if you do turn on your adaptive cruise control, you do have all of the information over there on the screen as well. It just gives you the need-to-know information along with your audio sources as well, so you can change through music and know what you're looking at. Now, coming to the steering wheel, let's talk about it. It does have very similar controls to what you find on a Nissan. So on the left-hand side, you have your audio controls, your seek and track buttons, and then on the right-hand side, you have your adaptive cruise control and your voice activation and phone. Overall, a leather-wrapped steering wheel, which is really nice to the touch. You've got some perforated leather over here on the places where you're placing your hands, and then it is not a flat bottom steering wheel, but then again, this is not a sport vehicle, so really nice steering wheel. Starting over on the left hand side of the steering wheel, you do have your controls to change the brightness of the gauge cluster, and then you can also turn on and off your heads up display and open up your lift gate. Now, one complaint I have here is this vehicle is fully equipped and there's still some blank switches here, so I'm not sure what other options they may offer and why these are all available. Going a little bit further up, you do have your air vents. This is actually a leather material as well, and even though this looks like hard touch plastic, this is actually that rubberized injection molded plastic that actually is soft touch, and I kind of wish they carried that over into the door panel, but again, this is a compact crossover, so you can't expect that. Now, one thing I do want to mention is you do have paddle shifters here, which is kind of surprising because this is a CVT, and we'll talk about powertrain here in just a minute. But let's talk about this 9-inch display. Now, this is the upgraded display. You can either get the 8-inch on the base model or this upgraded 9-inch, and personally, I think it's perfectly sized for a vehicle of this size. It's a good display. It's not the quickest in terms of navigating. You know, it's a little laggy, and I do think it's funny. It sounds like it's Windows XP every time you push a little button here. Not sure why they chose that audio, but nonetheless, really nice display over here because the graphics are really nice. It's just a little bit on the slower end, and the Infiniti QX60 I tested with a very similar software. Again, this is pretty much all Nissan. It was a little bit snappier than this, so I'm not sure if they had an upgraded graphics card or CPU or something like that. You do have physical volume buttons and physical tune buttons, and you do have some quick access buttons over here. One thing I really like is this 360-degree camera. Really nice to have on any vehicle, especially a compact crossover, because you don't expect it at this price point. But you do have different camera angles. You can't cycle to every single camera, unfortunately, but it does give you kind of the most difficult to see spots, and at the same time, this is where the software is very snappy. So pushing this button, you immediately pull up the camera, so I really like that that is no delay when you push that button. Coming down here, you do have your air vents, your push to start button, and then this is all, again, a really squishy, soft touch leather material. Again, you have that orange accent with this kind of saddle brown orange color on the interior. Looks really nice. Again, passenger door panel, you can see a different view there. And then moving down below, this is your climate control. Again, physical buttons for those of you that complain about a lot of manufacturers putting the tech into the screen itself. You still have physical buttons here. You do have heated seats for the front. Again, you don't have ventilated, which would be nice. They could have easily added that here. You do have your climate control. You do have a heated steering wheel as well on this SEL Touring trim, which is nice to have. Dual zone climate control. And then coming further down, this is where you have your wireless charging pad. You do have also 2 USB ports and just your 12-volt adapter. Another thing that's really soft on this vehicle is this section right over here. So this is the place right next to the wireless charger where you're probably going to be resting your knee as you're driving. And I gotta say, this is an incredibly really soft material over here. This is typically where manufacturers start cutting costs because they got to keep it within a certain price point. And I got to say, this is perfect for long road trips. You can just rest your knee here and not feel like you're touching a hard piece of metal. Moving further back, again, kind of a luxurious look to the interior. You do have a typical Nissan shifter here, nothing that you probably haven't seen before. This is kind of an interesting material. It's not aluminum. I'm pretty sure this is plastic, but it does look nice. It adds a little bit of a texture to the interior. I do like these drive modes. This controller knob has actually got a pretty good resistance to it and feels really good in the hands. You got a few different driving modes, from Eco to normal to tarmac, gravel, snow, and mud. Now this is again the most premium option, so you're gonna have more drive mode features than maybe the base trim, but I do like how the graphic changes every time you cycle through the drive modes. You do also have a trail control, so you can essentially do cruise control when you're off-roading. I don't think you will off-road this vehicle, but it does have all-wheel drive, so you do have that as an option. You do have your electronic parking brake and your auto hold. This is a piano black plastic, but it's not overdone. I think they did a good job. It's just enough to make it premium, but not overly cheap looking like some other vehicles. You do have two cup holders over here, and then you do have a really soft touch, like softer than normal. Opening this up, this compartment is a little bit on the smaller side, but it's not bad considering the fact that this is a compact crossover. Another thing I want to talk about is the fact that this vehicle does come with a panoramic moonroof, which is not always common, but increasingly more common amongst compact crossovers. But I really like that they included that here. And this does actually open, so you still get the functionality of having a sunroof, but also having that visibility for the rear seats. Now, speaking of rear seats, let's jump back there and show you all of the features back there. Okay, so does the back seat compare to the front? Well, the answer to that is most definitely yes. I mean, start off with the door panel. Again, this is a soft touch material. That's not common. Typically, the front seats have a much better material quality than the back. This is where they make this all hard touch plastic. Now, everything else matches the front, except you also have sunshades over here. These are manual operated, but nonetheless very, very uncommon. I can't think of any other compact crossover that comes with sunshades for the rear seats. Now let's talk about the rear seats. Same type of really nice pleated leather material, as you can see, all the way up into the headrest, and you still have that accent stitching as well. Again, that door panel just looks really nice, really good design to it. You do have that same Bose premium sound system. And then, well, you may be asking, where are the cup holders back here? Well, you actually have to pull on this little lever, and it's hard to do with one hand. When you pull on it, then you can lower this entire unit, and then you do have a soft touch material with two cup holders. I do wish they made it more of a conventional folding armrest, but it's still nice that it has that. Now, let's climb inside and show off something that I've just briefly showed on camera, and that is the fact that these rear seats, not only do they have heated functionality for the outboard seats, but as you can see here, you have your own climate control settings back here. That is a really uncommon feature. That's not something that comes with the Rav4 or the Honda CR-V. And I believe the rear air vents are standard regardless of which trim level you get. And you've got plenty of legroom here. This is me sitting behind myself. I got tons of space. You do have map pockets over here on the driver and passenger side. And let's show off what the headroom looks like. Pretty good headroom. I've got a couple inches here, but that's really because this panoramic sunroof kind of gets in the way, but I'm glad they did it because that panoramic sunroof does look really good on the interior, and that pretty much sums up the second row of this vehicle. Now, I would rate the interior an 8 out of 10. It's really this vehicle's main competitive advantage and selling point. It's a really nice interior. It almost rivals some luxury crossovers. From the soft touch material to the contrast in colors to the quilted seats and the panoramic sunroof, it's a really nice interior, especially considering the starting price of this vehicle is under $40,000. If you're looking for one of the most bang for your buck interiors, you gotta keep the 2022 Mitsubishi Outlander on your shopping list. Okay, now let's kick off the practicality segment of this video, and obviously we're starting with the powertrain. Now, this vehicle actually comes with a slightly different powertrain than the Nissan Rogue. The Nissan comes with a 1.5 liter 3-cylinder turbocharged engine, whereas the Outlander comes with a 2.5 liter inline-4 naturally aspirated engine. There's no turbocharging or anything like that here. Now, if you're curious about power output, it's pretty easy to remember. It's 181 horsepower and 181 pound-feet of torque. Now, that power is all sent through a continuously variable transmission, a CVT. And well, more on that in the performance and handling section. Now, in case you're wondering, the fuel economy on this thing is pretty good because of that setup. You get 24 in the city, 31 on the highway for a combined 27. Now, that is for the front wheel drive version. If you choose the all-wheel drive, which this particular vehicle has, you're going to sacrifice about 1 mpg in both the city and highway driving. Now, towing capacity, considering this is CVT, isn't bad at 2,000 pounds. Now, interestingly enough, Mitsubishi does offer a plug-in hybrid version of the Outlander, but it's actually on the previous generation version. So if you're looking to get 74 combined mpge, you're gonna have to deal with the older looking Outlander. But I do feel probably in a couple years they're gonna upgrade that PHEV to have the updated styling so you can get the best of both worlds, great MPG, and a really good exterior and interior. Okay, so now that I have teased pricing more than a dancer at a burlesque show, let's talk about how much this Outlander costs. Well, the starting price for the ES trim, which is the base model, is $26,995. And the Outlander tops out on the SEL Touring trim at $35,845. Now, my vehicle also has the tonneau cover and welcome package, so after destination costs, this particular vehicle that you're seeing on the screen is $37,995. Now, in case you're wondering, that pricing is actually very similar to the best-selling Toyota Rav4 and Honda CR-V, but as I'm sure you could tell with some of the features I've shown off, this vehicle has a few additional features that those other vehicles do not even offer. So is this the best bang for your buck? Well, let's start off with the cargo area because this particular vehicle has something that none of the other compact crossovers have to offer. Okay, starting with the back, you do have a power liftgate, so all you need to do is wave your foot and the tailgate will open, or the liftgate will open. Now here is the surprise. Yes, you have 3 rows of seats in a compact crossover. I can't think of any other competitor that offers this on the market. Now, unfortunately, you do have to cut your legs off to fit back here, but nonetheless, you do have that as an option. And I'll show you what that looks like climbing back here in just a minute because you can actually slide the second row forward to give a little bit more additional space for the third row passengers. But that is really incredible. And let me show you how this all works. So first of all, this is a giant headrest. You're gonna have to pull it out to actually fold down the seat. So you pull this out and then you simply just pull on this little handle here and the seat folds down flat, and it really does give you a flat loading floor. And where you hide this headrest along with the tonneau cover is actually underneath the floor of the trunk. So you just lift this little space up, and underneath here you'll find a little storage compartment where you can hide the headrest. Now, as a result of this, the only real compromise is the fact that you do not really have any underfloor storage on this compact crossover, but nonetheless, there's really not a compromise. You can have up to 3 rows without really having to have a giant bulge or something that will get in the way, and you can still load things in the back. Now, in terms of cargo capacity, you have 33.5 cubic feet of space, which is surprisingly a little bit smaller than the Honda CR-V and Toyota Rav4, but it is larger than the Chevy Equinox. Now, if you have the third row up, of course, your space is compromised. You're looking at 11.7 cubic feet of space, which, in case you're wondering, that's actually less than the C8 Corvette. So keep that in mind if you're looking at always carrying 7 passengers, although I don't think you'll do that. This is kind of for emergency situations because nobody can really fit back there unless you're a really small child. You do have a power outlet back here. And then another cool feature, you can actually fold down these second row seats from here, which is not something you see on all other compact crossovers. Now back here, I do want to point out you do have cup holders and you do have little straps over here where you can actually tie down different things in the trunk. a pretty functional trunk space overall, along with some lighting over here on the left. And then there's your seat belt, which you can hide out of place if you're not using the third row. Okay, so here is my contortionist lesson for the day, and at the sacrifice of my dignity, I'm going to show you what it looks like to get in the back. So obviously you're going to have to slide this second row forward. You pull on this handle, and then the seat actually allows you to slide it forward. Now you can gain access to this couple inches of space here to climb into the back. And climbing back here, let's see what it looks like. Well, it's not horrible, but the issue is in this position where I have about an inch of space, you don't really have any space in the second row. So it's either the second row or third row that sacrifices. Obviously the third row is going to sacrifice the most. And look at that. I mean, there's really no space back here to fit anybody, but in a pinch, if you really need to, you could probably just put your legs up to your knees and allow somebody to sit in the second row. Now let's talk headroom. Not that great either. If I sit up straight, my head actually touches the roof line, so not sure from a safety standpoint how that would hold up. But I do have a little window here, like a prison cell, that I can look out of. But again, I'm being a little facetious here. It is nice to have at least an option for a third row, even though it's not very easy to get in and out of. Okay, now we've talked about some of the cool features back here, like the rear sunshade, the 3-zone climate control, and the heated seats in the back. But let's talk about the numbers. So Mitsubishi says you have 37.9 inches of legroom back here, which is pretty common amongst compact crossovers. But if you choose to stuff someone back there like a tube of toothpaste, well, you're gonna have to sacrifice some of that legroom. In terms of ground clearance, Mitsubishi says you have 8.3 inches, so no crazy off-roading in the Outlander. Okay, now I've already talked about the front row features, but there's a couple things I wanted to mention. First of all, you do get wireless Apple CarPlay, but wired Android Auto for all of you Android users, which essentially makes the software that comes with the vehicle unnecessary because you're probably just going to plug in your phone. Now, in terms of cup holders, that's where it gets really impressive. You actually have 10 cup holders in this vehicle, 2 in the front doors, 2 more in the center arm console. You got 4 in the back between the doors and the armrest, and then 2 more in the third row. Now, USB ports is where it's a little bit of a different story. You only get 4, 2 up here in the front, 2 in the second row. And I do wish they added a household power outlet, which is something I'm seeing more common amongst crossovers, but I didn't see one in this vehicle. Now, in terms of warranty, that's where it gets really impressive. This is probably the only vehicle, or one of the few, I should say, that have a really amazing warranty. It's a 5-year, 60,000 mile bumper to bumper warranty, and then a 10-year, 100,000 mile powertrain warranty. I don't know if I'm even going to be alive by then, but there is an amazing warranty on the Outlander. And for that reason, along with the other amenities this vehicle comes with, and the fact that it has a third row standard on all models, I would rate practicality a 7 out of 10, which is higher than what I would rate it for some other vehicles in the same market. I think it's a very practical vehicle, and if you're looking for probably the most practical compact crossover, you gotta go check out the Mitsubishi Outlander. Okay, let's briefly talk about safety. On the safety side, this vehicle comes with lots and lots of features to keep you and your family safe on the road. Features include rear cross traffic alert, adaptive cruise control, forward collision mitigation with blind spot detection. You do have that 360-degree camera that I talked about. You do get blind spot monitoring as standard regardless of what trim level you get. And you also get 11 airbags on this vehicle, which is probably one of the best in the industry. Now, let's jump inside and talk about what else you get if you upgrade from the SE trim or higher. Now, if you upgrade to what Mitsubishi calls the My Pilot Assist, you can push this button, which looks very similar to the Nissan one, and it will activate your essentially semi-autonomous driving in the Mitsubishi Outlander. And as you can see on the instrument cluster, you do have a little Outlander Mitsubishi on the screen. And if you do have a car in front of you, it will actually be an old Mitsubishi Lancer. So kind of a cool nod to Mitsubishi's past. But what this system will do is it will actually center the vehicle in the middle of the lane as you're driving down the road. And in my testing, it actually worked pretty well in both city and highway driving. Now, in case case you're wondering, this vehicle did receive an IIHS top safety pick with good overall ratings in all categories. And I would ultimately rate the safety and security a 9 out of 10. The only thing really notching this down is the lack of any level 2 self-driving technology, which is starting to become more prevalent in the industry. But then again, no other compact crossover comes with any type of level 2 self-driving technology, especially at this price point. So the fact that you can get a lot of these safety features at just around $26,000 is truly a bang for your buck in terms of safety and security. Okay, now chances are if you buy this vehicle, you're probably going to sit in it for a long time because it will be your daily driver. So let's talk about the ride quality and handling. But before we do that, I quickly want to show you the Mitsubishi key. And if you guys have seen a Nissan key in the past, it's very similar to this. You've got your lock and unlock, you got your lift gate release, and then you do have your panic button. Now, I did not see any sort of remote start technology, but you do have that functionality if you use the Mitsubishi app. But without further ado, let's jump inside and talk performance and handling. Okay, let's set off in the 2022 Mitsubishi Outlander. And this does have the easy entry and exit, so we'll actually move the seat forward and backwards. And let's briefly talk about the maneuverability as we are in this parking lot. And that's definitely one of the advantages of this vehicle. So putting it in drive in this somewhat, not really tight parking lot, but let me show you what it looks like, because this vehicle has really good turning radius. I mean, it's really impressive. I think that was one complaint I had about the Chevy Equinox, is its turning radius seemed like it was worse than its size, whereas this one is super easy to maneuver, and your steering is very, very light, very easy to drive this vehicle. So that's definitely one of the Outlander's strengths in terms of driving and ride quality. So we're about to get on the road, and that's when we'll talk about some of the road noise or quietness and the ride quality as well. Okay, so we just did a little bit of an acceleration there, but we'll talk about more of that in just a minute. Let's talk about the road noise, or lack thereof. Ultimately, this vehicle is actually very quiet on the inside. We're about to go over some road bumps here because there's some road construction, and I'll show you what that sounds like inside of the cabin. So we're about to start driving on this somewhat bumpy road, and take a listen in here. Yeah, it's a really quiet ride. And in terms of ride quality in general, it's also very soft. I have no complaints with the comfort level of this car. I do think the Chevy Equinox rode a little bit softer than this vehicle. That one was kind of punching above its weight in terms of ride quality, but I have no complaints on this vehicle. This is just as comfortable, if not a little bit more comfortable, than the 2018 Toyota Rav4 that I used to own. And again, really quiet inside the cabin. I don't need to shout. I typically do shout because I'm Armenian and we are a very loud culture, but I don't need to shout to be able to reach you across the other side of the vehicle. Honestly, this vehicle would be great for longer road trips because of how quiet and soft this vehicle rides. And the seating position is great as well. The seats are very comfortable. Obviously, them being leather helps out a lot too, but I don't see myself getting sore or anything like that. And you do have lumbar support, so if you need it, you can just turn that up, and that way you have a little bit more support in your back. Okay, now let's briefly talk about the safety features, which I touched upon earlier, but let me show you what that looks like by turning on the My Pilot Assist and setting the cruise control. With the steering assist on, as soon as it detects the lanes, then you can essentially take your hands off the steering wheel, even though you technically can't, because it is going to ask you to keep your hands on the steering wheel to show a little bit of resistance. But it does a really good job staying in between the lanes. Now, it won't stop in front of a stoplight. There's no, autonomous driving here. It's really meant for highway driving and potentially, rush hour traffic. But nonetheless, a really good job from Mitsubishi and Nissan in developing a good system that actually stays in between the lanes. Now, let's talk about acceleration, because that's where I think this vehicle is lacking just a little bit. So we're at a stoplight here, and I'm going to put it into tarmac mode, which is kind of the sport mode, and I'm going to do a pedal to the ground acceleration, and let's see what it feels like for you and for me. Okay, here we go. This is pedal to the floor. I'm at 30 miles an hour. I'm at the speed limit of 45. I mean, if you couldn't tell on camera, I'm a little frustrated. Now, Motor Trend did rate this vehicle at 8.6 seconds 0 to 60, but definitely not at this elevation and definitely not on that road. Here's my complaint here. So I don't think it's an issue with the engine itself. The engine is a 2.5 liter, if you recall, 181 horsepower, 181 pound-feet of torque. The issue here is that CVT transmission. It really is not a good fit for this vehicle, especially if you consider I'm the only passenger in the vehicle right now, and it did that slow of an acceleration. If I put up to 7 people in this vehicle, I can't imagine how slow it would respond. Now, another thing I will mention is there are times where this CVT is actually pretty quick and peppy. And I don't know exactly when that is. There are some times where I just stomp on it and the vehicle does a really good job at accelerating. It works just as you would expect a 2.5 liter. And then there are other times that, like you saw on camera, I stomp on the gas pedal and it really doesn't move. And again, I don't think it's an engine issue because I used to have a 2018 Toyota Rav4 with a 2.5 liter with slightly less horsepower, and that car always felt a little bit peppier, a little bit quicker. It was never fast by any means, but I am used to a 2.5 liter engine, and I don't think it's an engine issue. I really think it's the transmission, and that sucks because this vehicle is overall a really nice package. You've got comfortable interior, good ride quality. You've got a really nice looking interior and exterior, but the engine performance, or I should say the transmission performance, is kind of the weakness here. And it's not something you can't get over, but it is something you're gonna have to consider. Although I will say a lot of the competition also comes with CVTs. That's not something new to Mitsubishi. That's something Nissan has had for a very long time. And so, unfortunately, that's just the trend for compact crossovers. So that is my one complaint on this vehicle. And for that reason, I would rate performance and handling a 4 out of 10. Everything else about this vehicle is fantastic, but that CVT transmission is something you're gonna have to get over if you're shopping for this vehicle. Now, that's not to say that this vehicle doesn't have some pretty big advantages that essentially make the CVT a little bit less of an issue than on some other vehicles. But if you are in the market for this car, definitely make sure you test drive it and see if it's something you can get over, because it does take a little bit getting used to. Okay, so there's everything you need to know about the all-new next-generation Mitsubishi Outlander. Honestly, if you're looking for the best bang for your buck vehicle, here's your answer right here. I mean, the fact that they were able to pack in so many cool features at a sub $40,000 starting price is truly amazing. In order to have some sort of competitive advantage for the brand name, they had to pack in a lot of things that those other competitors don't offer, like 3-row seating and an all-digital display and a panoramic sunroof with 3-zone climate control. And let's not forget a 10-year, 100,000-mile powertrain warranty. That's really impressive. Honestly, my one complaint about this vehicle is just the powertrain, and more specifically that CVT. I just think that's kind of the Achilles heel of this vehicle because it sometimes doesn't allocate the torque when you need it. And I am curious to see what it's like to drive the PHEV version when they end up converting it onto this new generation model. Nonetheless though, if you are in the market for a compact crossover, you'd be silly not to take a look at one of these because they really do offer a lot of features that some of those other competitors just don't. Thank you so much for watching. I do hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you did, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for all of the weekly car review videos. There's lots of different content from the vehicles I own to the vehicles I get to review. And also find me on all of the social media down in the description below. As always, everybody, I hope you stay schwazy, stay healthy, and have a wonderful day.